Welcome, my name is Tolly Bryn. This is the Joy of Awareness. I'm out here in a place called Eldgjá. This is a really cool, incredibly old volcanic fissure. Really interesting place to be in. And now that I've gotten far enough into the canyon itself, I'm completely alone. Generally, there are quite a lot of people walking around here. But this is it's a pretty nice and silent place, a great place for some quiet contemplation and making some videos. Today I wanted to talk a little bit about the social aspects of healing and of fasting in particular, because this is something that I think is more important than people generally think. Uh, when we talk about fasting for healing, generally the focus is upon the actual fasting, obviously, like that's the main thing. Actually sitting down and not eating, that's difficult. It's a difficult thing to do. And not to mention, like, if you're going to fast for many days, uh, that's going to take a lot of discipline, and it's going to take a lot of research before you get into it, just so that you don't have any trouble when you're refeeding or with energy levels, or yeah, you just want to take as good care of yourself as you possibly can. But there is another side to this coin of healing, and that is the social aspect. And it's been a few years since I went through my own sort of healing journey, coming out of some really difficult and painful autoimmune issues that I had been dealing with for almost half a decade, uh, in that severe form, and much longer than that in just way more manageable forms. Um, and as I came, how do I say, so as I finally realized what it was that I needed to do to heal, and I started doing these things, and what it namely is just fasting and a simple diet. And you can check out my older videos on more information on how to actually do that. But what I did was simply, I got into fasting. I simplified my meals to an insane degree. I just started eating one or two types of food at every meal, just to make sure that I wasn't eating something that would inflame my system again. And that's how I came out of this chronic illness that I'd been dealing with for many years. And to the regular average person who just listens to their doctor and watches TV and thinks that whenever they're sick they should just take a pill or some cough syrup or whatever, to that person what I just shared is insane. You need to realize that for people who aren't used to thinking outside of the mainstream paradigm or the mainstream box, what I'm talking about on this channel is just crazy. It's crazy talk. Like, people people can't connect to it because they haven't allowed themselves to think that far outside the box. And there may be all kinds of reasons for that. Like, I wouldn't have gotten into fasting and just really researching health this deeply if it hadn't been for my illness. So if people haven't dealt with any chronic illness in their lives, then I can totally understand that they wouldn't allow their brain to go to these places. But what that means is that the people around you, generally, while you're going through this kind of journey and you're trying out these kind of esoteric things, people won't generally be supportive. I was lucky enough that my mother was very supportive, and she was the only person in my family who was kind of genuinely open to the idea of healing, if that makes sense, which is quite interesting, actually, when I think about it. And when I, you know, when I came back, basically I moved out of the country and stayed there during the entire summer and fasted a lot. And I came back to my home country a changed man. Like, the people who had known me as a very sick individual. I had been very ill for a long time, and I couldn't work. I couldn't, go to school. I couldn't really socialize or exercise or do anything. And here I was, like, I came back and I was fully healed, and not just not partly healed, and not like, oh, you're looking a little bit better. No, like I was fully healed. I'd gotten rid of this chronic illness that had been plaguing me for all these years, that I'd been told by various doctors that it was incurable, that I'd have to take these pills and I'd have to take these drugs for the rest of my life, and it probably was just going to get worse. But I came back and I started telling people, like, yeah, I healed myself. Actually, I followed this and this protocol, and I'm healed. Like, I got rid of it. And even speaking to people who were dealing with their own autoimmune issues, just got like this glazed look and, oh, okay, and started talking about something else. And what I believe is going on there, and this was like the same with like friends and family, like when I came back and I was fully healed, and you could see it on me, like I was healthier than I'd ever been before. And all I would get was just like concerns over not having consulted a doctor, and like, oh, are you sure that's safe and all that, and fair enough, like I understand that, like not eating for 10 days at a time, you might imagine that that would be quite dangerous, and it can be if you do it wrong. But no acknowledgement of the actual healing, no acknowledgement that, well, actually the doctors sucked, they couldn't help me at all, they only made me sicker, and I actually I actually did the work, and I managed to heal myself. And not to like toot my own horn, but more like the power is with you, not with the doctors. But people just simply wouldn't listen. And anyway, what I think is going on here is a sort of egoic protective mechanism going off. Because this is a huge part of many people's paradigm. You get sick, you go to the doctor, you take the pills. And that's the way we do things in this society. And when somebody comes along and throws a monkey wrench in the system, and like all the gears start breaking, and it's like, oh wait, what? So this guy actually went out and fasted and healed himself of something that he should actually be taking medicines and doing like UV treatments or whatever for years and years and years without seeing any benefit. Like that's what he should be doing, but he actually went out there and he healed himself. Like what does this mean? What does this mean to all of the other deep-seated beliefs that I have about the world and about myself and about my power in the world? And I believe what's happening is just they're trying to protect themselves by, closing their ears, like la 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 la, like going like this. You don't have to actually absorb the information that's being given, and you can start, you can start being kind of fastidious about just, I don't know, pointing to various like inane sayings or just these cliches about like, yeah, you have to talk to your doctor first before doing anything like this, and yeah, like drugs are the solution to everything, and all these silly beliefs that are just totally wrong, by the way. There is nothing behind that, and I think I'll make a video series on this soon. Like I truly believe that the medical establishment has, in the past 500 years, done way more bad than it has done good. And I was like, in this context, I was thinking about Ignaz Semmelweis. I think he was Hungarian doctor who discovered that pregnant women, when doctors went straight from dissecting corpses, dissecting cadavers for research purposes, straight into helping pregnant women with childbirth, that was actually a pretty bad idea, and that was causing a lot of the pregnancy, or how do you say, like the deaths during birth that were happening all around the world at that time. And you might think like, wow, yeah, so that guy, he actually solved that problem of doctors killing pregnant women. But if you think it even further, it's like, well, would all of these pregnant women actually have died if they'd just been, birthing children at home, as they'd been doing for thousands of years before the medical establishment got established? And I think the further that you start thinking in that direction, the more you'll realize, like, okay, so there are certain benefits to a lot of the things that the medical establishment has discovered and has propagated, but there are also a lot of deaths and a lot of skeletons in the closets, and there are many doctors who have a lot of blood on their hands, and I think it's kind of wrong speak and wrong think to actually say this publicly, but this channel is about speaking truth. This channel is about helping people to actually find true health on a physical and mental level, spiritual level even. And this is as close as I can come to saying the truth that I've discovered, at least. And I think it's apt in the realm of, like, or how do I say, like, the social realm when it comes to healing, to take a look at the analogy of the crabs in the bucket. You've got this old fisherman who's fishing crabs, and he throws them in a bucket, and there's no lid on the top, and some passerby goes like, "Hey, you should probably put like a lid on top of the bucket, because they're going to manage to crawl out." And the fisherman is like, "No, they won't do that, because whenever a crab gets to the edge of a bucket and starts to climb himself out, the other crabs notice it, and they grab him with their pincers and pull him back down. So they never get out of the bucket." And I'm afraid this is something that happens quite a lot when it comes to healing your body, healing your mind. You're doing all these things that people find weird and that don't fit into the paradigms of other people. And on a subconscious level, they feel, or they understand, that if you are right, that you can actually heal through fasting and a simple diet like I did, like, if that's true, that means that they're wrong. That means that everything is wrong, in fact. That means that the paradigm that they're operating by is deeply, deeply flawed. And a shattered paradigm is kind of like a, shattered bone. It's painful, and it's difficult to heal, and it's difficult to figure out what to do with that kind of information. I remember, like, I went through a grieving process when I realized what it was that I was discovering. And it took a few years for me to piece together a new worldview. But when I discovered, like, for instance, when I discovered that the medicine that I had been given by doctors was actually what was keeping me sick, and was actually making me sicker and harming me on levels that I could never have imagined. Like, I just kind of worked by the premise that, you went to your doctor and he was there to help you. And the pills that he gave you were medicine meant to cure you. But that's simply not how the system works. And I remember just feeling absolutely, despairing and despondent for a long, long time, while I was, breaking apart the old worldview that I'd had and piecing together a new one. And it was difficult work, and I needed to do a lot of research. I needed to reach out to quite a few other people who had dealt with similar issues and discovered similar things. And it was difficult. So I can understand where it's coming from, but it also means that we will have a very hard time talking to people who are not on the same wavelength as we are on this matter. And what's been happening to me in the aftermath of my healing journey is like an absolute inability to relate to very many people. There are some people who I relate to way better than I did before, but most people who are still stuck in the same old, matrix, as cliche as that sounds, they're stuck in the same old thought patterns as some very powerful and wealthy entities would like you to stay in. Like, you just can't relate. You can't speak to them. You're not speaking the same language anymore. And that is, it's quite traumatizing. And I realized that when I was when I was the few years after my healing journey, I started realizing like, wow, that I'm not the same man. I'm not living in the same world as I was living in before. People I'm talking to might as well be aliens. Like they do not understand what I'm telling them, and they think I'm insane. And you know, for a while I was like, am I insane? Am I maybe insane? And I was genuinely wondering whether I was insane or not. And you know, that's not really that weird, honestly. Like when you discover something crazy like this, it's kind of like discovering magic. Like you discover that you can, you know, turn on the lights with a snap of your fingers or something, without there being like a clapper or snapper, or you can levitate objects or whatever. And you discover this, and you try to tell people about it, and you try to show them, and they're like, still don't believe you. You're crazy. Like, have you spoken to your doctor about this? And it's just so insane. It's so insane. But it is incredibly important to become aware of exactly what is going on there. I'm gonna not make this video much longer. I'd like you to like and subscribe if you enjoy my stuff. I really enjoy having you watching my stuff, and I'd love even more people to find this content. I'm doing my absolute best to make this content as valuable as it possibly can be. I want you to heal. I want you to realize that you have the power to heal. Like, it's not the doctors, it's not the medical establishment that's going to save you. It's you. You are going to save yourself. You have the power. You can just stop eating, and then when you start eating again, you can just simplify your stuff. Eat some really simple meals, and if you're dealing with any kind of autoimmune issues, you will see huge healing in a short amount of time. I'm working on some stuff that I think will really blow your mind. It's more focused on the spiritual and mental aspects of healing. Writing a book and working on some kind of course or some video series or something like that, that goes way deeper than anything else I've been doing until now. So really stay tuned for that. I think you'll find it very exciting and very valuable. But yeah, just keep fighting the good fight, keep studying, keep learning about this stuff. You will heal if you keep following if you keep following this protocol. Just try it out. Start fasting, start simplifying your diet, start taking care of yourself and taking responsibility for your own health. I love you guys. Just stay healthy, all right? So, see ya.